1 minute.
Now, go. We're going to call the meeting to order. This is the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, November 7th, 2024. Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Richards? Here. Alderperson Denham?
Here.
Commissioner Green? Commissioner Hillis?
Here.
Chairperson Groman?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Here.
Commissioner Morielli?
Here.
Commissioner Martinoski? Commissioner O'Day? Commissioner Gore? We have a quorum.
If you'd please stand and follow along with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a time of our meeting where members of the public can speak regarding city business that the Planning Commission has jurisdiction or authority to take action on, which is not listed on the agenda for public hearing tonight. We ask that you be mindful of everybody's time, refrain from making comments that are repetitive. We ask the members of the public to please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. If we've got 10 or more people, we're going to limit you to 3 minutes. Please state your name and whether you're a resident within the city limits of Branson.
We have no speakers tonight.
Okay. First item on the regular agenda is the approval of the Planning Commission minutes for the September 3rd, 2024 study session. Has the commission had a chance to review the minutes? And are there any comments concerning or questions concerning the minutes? I will now entertain a motion to approve the September 3rd, 2024 study session minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second? Let's have a vote.
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Morielli? Okay, result of the vote, 6 yea, 0 nay. Motion carried.
Next item on the regular agenda is the approval of the Planning Commission minutes for the September 3rd, 2024 regular meeting. Have the commissioners had a chance to review the minutes, and do you have any comments or concerns regarding the minutes? I'll now entertain a motion to approve the September 3rd, 2024 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Do I get a second in here too?
Yep.
Great.
Okay. Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Commissioner Morielli?
Yes.
Result of the vote, 6 yea, 0 nay. Motion carried.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda tonight is a public hearing, is a request for municipal code amendments throughout Chapter 94 regarding food trucks. Can I get a motion to bring this item to the floor? Do I have a second?
Second.
Would staff like to provide more information on this item?
Yes, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners, Alderwoman. Nice to see you guys here tonight.
So item number 3 is a public hearing for it's an amendment to our food truck ordinance. So this has been legally noticed in the paper because it's a public hearing. So just a little history on food trucks in Branson. The Branson's food truck ordinance was created about 7 years ago. And at that time, this was kind of a new, trendy concept, and many cities at that time put really strict regulations in place for food trucks just because of the unknown. And over the years, staff has heard from the food truck community and the vendors just the difficulty of the application process to obtain this permit. And also in spirit of the red tape initiative that we're kind of working towards, we are trying to reduce the overly cumbersome process for food truck permits. So this has been an alderman-sponsored amendment, and staff has reached out to food trucks that are operating in Branson. They had a roundtable discussion with some vendors, city staff, and aldermen. And so city staff has collaborated internally and externally and has crafted this proposed code amendment. So this table just kind of is a summary of the key updates for this food truck ordinance amendment. I'll just kind of go through these kind of quickly. So site plan requirements. So currently our regulations require a site plan for each operating location, which can be multiple locations. What we are proposing is that no site plan is required. There could be an on-site inspection that confirms proper placement of the food truck in relation to site distance and utilities and on-site circulation, things like that. The next one's distancing requirements. So current code requires that they be 100 feet from restaurants and 500 feet from schools. We are proposing to remove the distancing requirements altogether. So a food truck inspection tag. So right now, this is not in place at all, but what we're proposing is a yearly tag or sticker for the food trucks to put on there. So once the city has inspected it, and they put it on their truck, and they go to multiple places within the city, we know that they've been inspected by the city, at least somewhere. And they can also operate 365 days a year. So another part of the ordinance is we've clarified the city's FOG program, the city's fats, oils, and grease management program. So current regulations are somewhat vague regarding these requirements for food trucks when they are connecting to city water and city sewer. So what our amendment states is that it clearly states the requirements for backflow devices and grease interceptors. They're only going to be needed if they're connecting to public water supplies, the public sewer, or if they're utilizing a dump station which connects to the city sewer. So the topic of locating at multiple locations in the city, right now, we do require, like I mentioned, a site plan for each location within the city as they are mobile traveling around. But what we're proposing is that they only have to apply once. The applicant only applies once. They receive the approval, they get their sticker, and then they can be mobile within the city. And I think we're kind of looking at this as we evaluate this on a case-by-case basis. If there's an issue out in the field, we'll go out and inspect it, take care of it. If they're blocking traffic, something like that, we can take care of that. The last one is food trucks that are operating within an approved special event. So we have all these special events, temporary uses all through the year, like Plum Nelly Days, farmers markets, things like that. And food vendors, food trucks go to these events. So right now our code requires them we have a special event permit for the whole event, and then we have the requirement of a food truck permit for all these people that are within these larger events. So what we're proposing is to eliminate that requirement for a food truck permit for these one-time events like Plum Nelly Days, Autumn Days, those kinds of things. But they will still have to get a temporary business license, the fire inspections, and health department approvals are still going to be required. And these larger events like this are still monitored by city staff. That kind of does it for this one. Our recommendation from the planning department is to recommend approval of the proposed code amendment, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any commissioners have any questions?
I have one.
On what I've seen in the new zoning is they took out that alcohol is prohibited, so they can sell alcohol.
No, so we did take that out, but that's covered under business licensing. Spoke with the finance department, and they have some kind of provision in their process where it's still prohibited. But we did suggest removing it in this article just to kind of make it cleaner. It's already covered somewhere else in Branson code.
Okay, because if you take out it being close to schools and so forth, nobody wants them selling alcohol next door to the,
No, right, but again, I think it's covered under the licensing process.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Yes.
question. Can you just explain why site plan was removed from the application process?
Yeah, it's was really difficult for many of these food truck vendors. They're businessmen, they have restaurants, they have food, operations. They aren't necessarily on the computer downloading site plans to scale that shows, where they're going to be, and they're truly mobile, so it could change on site. We're still going to be inspecting them. We're out in the field every day. We're going to notice if there's something that's needs to be moved or something like that. So we're just trying to make it an easier process for the food truck vendors.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
now, with the food trucks and with the changes, food trucks can go anywhere in the city, correct? There is no particular location.
They would have to have property owner permission, if it's on private property, if they're in the right-of-way, there would be a right-of-way permit. We do have it's not ours, it's in Taney County, but on 248, there's a food truck court, but that's actually in the county, so we don't regulate that. We do have a food truck court special use permit that's required for anything over 3 trucks. Has to go through a special, different process that you guys would see and hear and have ability to approve or disapprove.
And that would be for over 3 trucks at one location.
That's correct.
Thanks.
Anybody else? I have one question. The water and sewer, are they comfortable with the backflow devices and grease interceptor requirements of this?
The food truck vendors? Well, and so,
Because they're gonna have grease and they're gonna need water. I just want to make sure that utilities is comfortable with it, that's all.
okay, we do have Harley here from Utilities Department. I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit, Harley?
Good evening. Yeah, we set this up as kind of a minimum standard, is what we were looking for. And we think with the language in there, and I believe that our application wording is going to change. And like Jennifer said, we're going to have the opportunity to be on site if we need to be, to, inspect them. I guess in theory, we could spot inspect them when they move locations. So as long as we can comfortably say that they're not connecting to our water and sewer or dumping to a dump station that connects to our sewer, then we're comfortable with it. And that's just something we will have to monitor down the road if we start seeing issues with, grease buildup because there's 4 food trucks dumping in one dump location, then we can, kind of police that then.
So this is a good base point to start, and we'll monitor it, we'll change it if we need to.
I believe so, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Anybody from the public have any comment on this? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve the request for municipal code amendments throughout Chapter 94 regarding food trucks. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Roll call vote. Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes,
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Result of the vote, 6 yea, 0 nay. Motion carried.
The next item is a public hearing for a request for municipal code amendments throughout Chapter 94 regarding land disturbances. Can I get a motion to bring this item to the floor?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Good evening. I'll be talking about land disturbance. I'll start, this was also posted in the paper since it is a public hearing. I'll start with a brief background of land disturbance. So National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, the NPDES, was originally added to the Clean Water Act of 1972 to address stormwater pollution by regulating MS4, municipal separate storm sewer system communities. And originally, it only included municipalities or communities with 100,000 or more in their population. And then in 1999, EPA amended it again to include Phase 2, which is anything 10,000 in population or more. And Branson is a regulated MS4 community. We're the only one in Lake Taneycomo watershed. So we do have an MS4 permit from Missouri Department of Natural Resources. And in our MS4 permit is a suite of requirements. One of those is that we issue land disturbance permits for any projects disturbing 1 or more acres of land. And this is to prevent any stormwater pollution such as sediment, chemical runoff, anything into the storm drains, which ultimately end up in the lake. Also to prevent sedimentation onto adjacent properties, to protect the neighbors from increased velocity and volumes of water, which could cause flooding or erosion. And so the purpose of the code change, the red line version that you guys have seen, is to reduce regulatory barriers and improve the clarity in the ordinance language. And this was to align local regulations with state and federal requirements. There was a few things that we were more strict on, and then there were some things that we didn't include that we needed to per our MS4 permit. And ultimately, the reason that the code is here is to protect Branson's natural resources and to support sustainable growth now and in the future. So there was a lot of changes. If you guys have seen the red line version, I'll go through the biggest changes. A lot of the changes were just to clarify certain requirements, remove duplicated requirements, and to make it flow better. The biggest change was probably that we raised the threshold for requiring land disturbance permits from 3,000 square feet to 1 acre. That's what the state requires. And then pre-application requirements, I say requirement, it's not actually required, but in previous code it was hidden. And now we are kind of emphasizing that and encouraging that. It's a developer's time to come in with their plan and get on the same page with the city, figure out exactly what's required and what will be expected of them moving forward. Plans, previous code needed to be prepared by a licensed professional engineer. Now they can be prepared by any registered design professional as long as they're knowledgeable in sediment erosion control practices. Like I said earlier, documentation requirements were often duplicated. They showed up in several different sections of the land disturbance code. Made it kind of hard to read, confusing. So we simplified that, and then we added a few minor requirements per our MS4 permit in there as well. And then topographic surveys needed to be prepared in previous code by a professional licensed surveyor, PLS. And we do not require a stamped survey anymore. As long as topographic information can be provided accurately, we require 2-foot contours on all our site maps. And that can be obtained by a number of different free online sources. Environmentally critical areas were added. Previous code mentioned water courses, wetlands, and surface bodies of water. We broadened that to include any area, including caves, sinkholes, streams, springs, anything that might be could be negatively impacted by the development. And then inspections and fees. Previous code didn't have any mention of fees at all. And so we did add 2 inspection types and define them both. One was the base inspection, which is a suite of typical inspections that would occur on the property, and then the other was a re-inspection that would only occur after a violation or failed inspection. So moving forward, all projects that are 1 acre or more will still require a land disturbance permit as well as erosion control plan and actual erosion control devices installed and implemented. And this will be enforced through our land disturbance code, solid waste code, and our nuisance code. And for projects that are under 1 acre, there's not erosion control plan required, and erosion control devices are only needed, or are only required as needed to prevent erosion and sedimentation onto adjacent properties. And this will be enforced as well through land disturbance, solid waste, and nuisances. And I think that's all I've got. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to speak to them.
Any commissioners have any questions?
Several.
Shoot.
Is there bite in this against violators, second, third-time offenses? And if there is there fees attached that don't allow companies to change their name, like under LLCs? Can we adapt so that we have the owners of this listed, so that if they violate? When I took this, one of my goals was, I see so much violation and it takes so long to regrow a tree. My thought process was, instead of a small fee, let's hit them with $5,000 the first offense, $50,000 for the second, and $100,000 for the third. We'd have a lot less tearing apart of our landscape.
Sure.
Just for discussion.
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer that question. By state statute, which is the only power given to the city, we are capped at a $500 punishable fine for violation of code. It is per day, so if it's a continued violation, that can be addressed. But we are limited. We cannot create other fees in regards to that. But that is for institution by the municipal court process.
So what's the cutoff? Okay, $500 a day. Who cuts it off? That could, if you destroyed it, what, are you going to wait for the tree to come back? So that's $500 a day until the tree comes back.
So if there is a violation of the land disturbance permit and there was a ticket issued for that, a ticket is for a time and place of violation because it's quasi-criminal, quasi-civil. So it has to be clear as to when that action occurred. So if the issue is, as you suggested, the cutting of a tree, that would just happen on one day. If it is the issue of erosion from that property, each time there is that erosion, that can be a finable offense. But I want to make it clear, it's up to 500. It is not definitely 500.
So basically a slap on the finger.
There are other mechanisms provided by statute. We can file an injunction, and that is clearly, and that is why this is in Chapter 94, as opposed to creating a separate stormwater chapter, because Chapter 94 is our zoning chapter. We tie it to the zoning and the use. And so through that, we have, by statute, the opportunity to file an injunction, both temporary and permanent, asking for the discontinuation of the zoning violation. That's an immediate attention from the court. So that we have that as a mechanism available. So no, it's not a sit back and watch. There also, if you are causing damage to neighboring properties, that could potentially be a civil liability in regards to a private nuisance and regards to the quiet enjoyment of someone's property.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners have a question?
I have a question just on this conversation. A stop work order could also be placed on that property until,
Yes, and so stop work order's a little tricky because it's to stop work. But we do have that available in this process. So if they are doing work, cutting down, doing the process, then we have that opportunity to issue a stop work order. At the point that a stop work order occurs, then anyone who continues to work is in violation of the stop work order and can be ticketed, including any other workers on that property. Work is to stop because you are not complying with or do not have the permit.
so then the $500 or up to $500 could just be added on daily while that stop work order is in place?
So if there was continued work, you could issue tickets in regards to when that occurs, yes. It is certainly not the intent of staff to sit back and watch. It is certainly our intent to ensure that we're good neighbors. And that's why we have these plans that we're requiring when it's up to an acre in a larger plan, as part of a larger plan. So if I'm doing 100-acre development and it's small parts, but those small parts add up to 1 acre, then yes, it would be enforceable and a required permit.
So just a comment I'll put out there. I noticed on your previous page for the pre-application, it's encourage and emphasize. It might be a good idea to have it be a shall be so that everything can be discussed, you know, right up front before permits even issue. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. We'll take that into consideration for sure.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
I still think that there could be some other mechanisms that could be added for enforcement. But we went from 3,000 square feet to an acre. Also, we increased that. I mean, if it's short of an acre, it's not considered. I talked to a couple the other day that had a property that was smaller than an acre built next to them. Their house has been flooded 3 times in the last year. Mud, everything, and they were told that, I'm in city code, so I don't care. And this couple, a young couple with children, just having a heck of a time. I don't believe we should even go up to an acre.
So to clarify on that, part of what this regulation is a means to find kind of that happy medium between what we should regulate and what should be a civil action between one property to another. I will tell you that in discussions in regards to this, we did and are in the process of adding a requirement in our building permit that BMPs, which is
Best management practices.
he's so good, isn't he? Best management practices to be in place with any building action that goes on. Obviously, if you're putting a new roof on, that probably wouldn't apply. So we're going to have that ready at the time this will go to the board. That's under Chapter 18, so it's not in the purview of the Planning Commission, but that was part of the compromise and part of addressing the concerns you're talking about. When it is less than an acre, that still can be a disturbance and a concern, and so we're going to ensure that that is a part of our permitting process, but that would be under Chapter 18 where you get that permit.
Does the state have any minimum requirement? We have 1 acre. Does that comply with the state?
Yeah, that's the state requirement as well.
Are we more restricted than the state in any areas, and if so, why?
We are not.
So our topography and rock and that stuff doesn't enter into the picture at all. It's just one state, all state, right?
Under the proposed code, we are pretty much at what the state requires, we require. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we want development in the city. That's definitely for sure. There are some great developers that are fine with, you know, coming in, meeting, having their meeting, doing everything to meet code, because they want to have their project be a good neighbor. I think we really need to be mindful of protecting our property owners, protecting their rights. 'Cause we're taking and adding 40,000 square feet onto this to not have to require a landscape permit. And that's a pretty big jump, and I know that we're here for a discussion tonight on this. And I don't feel it's fair to say where it goes to a civil issue, because a property owner who has purchased their property in a certain location, whether they have homeowner association rules or anything, I don't feel that it's fair to throw back on the property owner the requirement to have to get an attorney, the requirement when they thought they were protected by what they currently have, and that's why they purchased their property, where they purchased their property. So maybe, I don't know, maybe an acre is too large. We do have varying topography in this area compared to other areas in this state. So I think that could maybe be up for discussion or to take into consideration. Thanks.
Thank you.
Are you saying you want the 1 acre lowered? Are you saying you want it to be less than 1 acre?
I mean, it might be great to hear from the other members of this board to see how they feel.
I will note that the requirements of the best management practices for stormwater would be still applicable and enforceable by the city when somebody does a building. So the example given by the commissioner in regards to one property owner next to another, it would not just be civil, it would be something that the city can address, because we would make that a part of the requirement of their building permit.
Mr. Commissioner.
The difference is what we're requiring in a land disturbance is what is called a SWIP, the SWPP, and it's pretty intensive. It requires a lot of work. And so there's that balance. We do have a copy of a SWIP if anybody would like to see what that is entailed.
Okay, I'll admit, I'm not the brightest bulb in the tree, but I just want to make sure that when we send this up to the board, we're not sending them up an opportunity that's going to end up like Fall Creek did. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure. Tell me that, I want that assurance.
Mr. Commissioner, at this time, there's a lot of questions that we still have in here, and I think there's still more work that we could do. And since it's such a large item, I would ask that we postpone this at this time so we could all take a better look at this and get a more in-depth of what we.
Could I request you to hold that? We'll go ahead and let the public speak, and so we have that on the record, so that if we do postpone it, that information is available to be considered. But when we get through the public, we go ahead. Any other commissioners have a comment? At this time, anybody from the public have a comment? Ma'am, step up here. Fill out the sheet. State your name and address. 5-minute limit. We're here to listen to you and have what you want on the record. It's not a Q&A period.
Okay. I'm Cherry Webster. I live in Country Bluff Estates, and I saw the effects of a 50-acre development project in 2020. When I look at all the changes that are proposed here, if they were in place in 2020, I don't think we would have had any different results, because that development was so tied to the concurrent annexation process that the developer was able to game the system between the county regulations and the city regulations. And I don't know how you fix that. It's been proposed that an intergovernmental agreement might be necessary, but at the same time, What if someone were to do their land disturbance while in the county? Maybe they wait a month or 2 or 6, and they've created some downstream runoff. Is there a way for your ordinance here to perhaps put some sort of criteria if they need another land disturbance, or, yeah, another land disturbance permit, or even a building construction permit? And it was suggested to me that section 78-119, which is the adoption design criteria standards, includes water detention. We didn't get water detention. The developer had a SWIP for 4,000 cubic yards, and instead he used 2 lots in the Country Bluff Estate subdivision that were grossly inadequate. So it was also suggested, Director Amanda, 78-126-2, perhaps an upgrade, a required minimum for stormwater management there. As to the comments on fines, that's what Attorney Holly said. It's very disappointing that you can max it out at $500. That's a nit to some of the developers that are in town. And there should be escalating fines as you go, particularly for repeat offenders. The other thing that I've seen in the proposed changes, it does refer to the city's design criteria standards manual, which is pretty much where you see stormwater runoff in Chapter 7. But the verbiage in here it talks a lot about the SWIP. And the SWIP is very different. For example, I'm looking at all of this through the lens of Fountains on Fall Creek. So how do you prevent it from happening again? The DNR rep explained to our neighborhood that their mission was water quality. It's reducing sediment control. And so they had a sediment threshold that had to be met. And so the MS4 coordinator was out there every time it rained doing the sediment tests. At the same time, it took the DNR 11 days to drive from Springfield to Branson to do an on-site unannounced inspection. And by then, that was day 13 of the 14-day felling of the forest. So, like you say, you wait? You wait for a tree to grow before you find them, even if you issued a stop work order. What does that do for the downstream properties? Here we are 4 years later, and this rain that we just had in July poured off of that property. So with the adoption design criteria, if a developer wants to come in and even say develop that property, is there something in the code that you can add that would require a look back at what has occurred to the downstream properties? I don't know. That's just a thought. Okay. So with respect to the actual ordinance, on line 77, Alderman Denham mentioned making the pre-application a required application. I think it definitely should be required if there's a concurrent annexation with it. And again, either concurrent or maybe after some development. If at that point you can add some sort of criteria that evaluates the property's current state and its relationship to downstream properties. Because that's been our biggest issue, is with the clearing of 40 acres when there was just a 10-acre permit. On line, let me go back to the SWIP. Yeah.
Sure, that's
line?
your time is up. We'll be happy to give you a few minutes more, but
Can I address line 101? Okay, so line 101 talks about the SWIP, and what the DNR explained was that they cannot enforce a developer to implement the SWIP. They can only require that the sediment threshold level be met. And so there was an order of activities for the SWIP, and the developer, some he did be out of order, some he didn't do at all. And it leaves the burden upon the DNR to say, you didn't meet the threshold level of sediment. And once that was met, there was nothing else to be done about the flow and velocity of sediment-free water coming through. So I'm not quite sure exactly whether or not this ordinance as it is here now is going to be that effective to prevent other actions, because it's very difficult to codify ethics. And that's really what we were dealing with.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Any commissioners have any other members of the public like to speak? Tracy, I have a question for you. There's been a lot of topics covered. My understanding is that we're talking about the land disturbance, annexation. They're currently in the process of redoing regulations for annexation and some other areas. Will they address some of the problems that were brought up here? Is this the ordinance that should address those problems, I guess is what I'm asking you?
I think most of the land disturbance issues with annexations will be an internal process, not in this land disturbance code.
Other commissioners, any commissioners have any other comments or suggestions?
I would just like to say thank you to the planning department, the engineering department. There are so many puzzle pieces that come into play when this is discussed. So I want to say thank you to all the work, for all the work that's been put in. Holly Dodge, too, thank you. It's difficult to separate everything when you're thinking of the process, thinking of what the concerns there have been, thinking of how do we make it easier for our developers and development. And so we know that all these things they come into play and we need to consider them. I know that it's like anything that's been asked of planning and engineering and public works, we immediately get response and research and amendments brought to us, and we're extremely appreciative of that. Thank you. It seems like there's a lot more questions than answers, but it's not all related to this ordinance. So I think that's where the clarification needs to take place.
Other commissioners?
Yes, sir. Once again, as I said before, it's such a large item, and there's so many things that we're looking that we have taken out and changed. I just think we need to take a better look at this, and we just want to make sure we do our due diligence.
I believe that's what we're trying to do. If you want to make a motion,
I
go
would
ahead.
like
We
to
get a
make the
second, we'll
motion.
discuss it and vote on it. And
I would like to make the motion that we postpone it to this time so we can take a better look at it.
Yeah.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening. Alex Stroud from City Administration. Just wanted to say thank you for addressing this topic. This is something that we routinely hear from developers in town as a really critical issue that's a barrier to their development. And I think we need to find a balance, right, between some of the things that have happened with residents and having good, sound environmental policy, but at the same time, having flexibility. So when we start to address things such as affordable housing and adding development and growing Branson, we're able to balance that. That was really our intent of this ordinance and this change, is to try to find that happy medium that makes it responsible, but also pro-growth and pro-economic development. So, this is something that was brought to us numerous times over the past six or so months from developers as we've been having more and more meetings. And we really wanted to take it upon ourselves in administration to, talk the talk, right? And if there's an issue, we will address it. And that's why we're here this evening. So, whether or not it gets postponed, that's fine. We can definitely look into things more and address some of the comments and concerns heard this evening. But I just wanted to really provide a little bit more history and backstory of some of the mindset we had as we developed and proposed this initiative. Because again, we hear routinely from our development community, and I think collectively, right, we want to break down barriers, we want to remove government red tape, but at the same time, of course, we want to protect our residents and property values. So with that, I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of the backstory on that, and more so, we took the initiative right to draft this, and this is where the conversation we're at tonight. So just wanted to give credit to staff, of course, and the fact that your city administration is listening to what the development community and residents are saying. And we'll be able to tackle these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you still want to maintain your motion?
I do. I know developers have come through for the last year, but you're asking us to take a look at this and go through something that we received yesterday. And it's going to take a little more time than that to figure out the best way to go through this. And so I still make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Before you get a second, Chairperson Groman, I just need a clarification. Did you close the public hearing? And Commissioner, is your intent to continue it with the public hearing remaining open, or because everybody's had the opportunity to speak and there were no others that wanted to address it, close the public hearing and then vote for a postponement to the next meeting with discussion for the commission?
I would like to close the public hearing and propose that we postpone it to the next meeting so that we can take a better look at it. Commissioners can make amendments. And those.
So then, Chairperson, we just need an official closing of the public hearing, and then you can entertain that motion.
I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
You don't have to have a motion, you can just close it.
It's closed. Where do we go from here?
Now we have
Now we
a
have a
motion to continue to the December 3rd meeting.
We need a second?
Hang on. Is it possible to do a special session? Like
Yes.
in a week or 2 weeks?
Yes.
Let's move
and-
this along for the benefit of our developers.
And that would keep us in line. Otherwise, we're going to have to put this on the Board of Aldermen agenda on the 26th because we did advertise for that, so we would have had to continue that. So that would certainly be appreciated in regards to the streamlining of it, yes.
I'm getting confused. We have a motion, we're just looking for a second. Then we can discuss it. Seems like we're discussing it before we even get a second. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second?
Then I need clarification as to the basis of the motion. Is the motion a continuance to December 3rd?
Specific date?
If we can have a study or a private session or a study session to work on this in a couple of weeks, I'm okay with it.
It'd have to be public.
Public meeting
That's fine.
a week from tonight?
Well,
Nope.
I think we have a board meeting, a week from tonight, don't we? Are
Nope.
we going to give them present? Do they have a board meeting a week from tonight?
The board meeting's on the 12th, but this is not on that agenda. It's on the November 26th agenda. So if you had your meeting before the November 26th, it would still stay. That would not in any way delay the proceeding, getting it to the board.
So could we have a motion and a second? Could you read that back so I know what we're dealing with?
So this is going to be a motion to postpone the public hearing for municipal code amendments throughout Chapter 94 regarding land disturbance to a date certain of Thursday, November 14th at 6 p.m. We'll start with a roll call.
No, I want to have discussion first. Any commissioners have any discussion they want to make on it? I'd like to suggest one thing. This is just a starting point. There's 100 different things that were pointed out, or not 100, might be a slight exaggeration. This is a starting point. It's a good starting point. My suggestion would be let's just get it through, get it to the board, have one public hearing with the board, get everybody here, have it done at once. I mean, we can drag this out we can drag this out for as long as we want to drag it out here, but I think it accomplishes what it is we want to accomplish. We want to give relief to our developers, and it's not going to solve the problem, like, as Sherry pointed out, that happened at Fall Creek. You can't take care of the bandits. What we can do is come up with a fair regulation that applies. We get it up to the board, and then they'll have a public hearing there, and then can make the corrections they want to make. But that's my shot, and we go ahead and vote. Any other commissioners have anything they want to say on it?
Roll call vote. Commissioner Richards?
No.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
No.
Commissioner Moriali?
Yes.
Okay. Result of the vote, 4 votes yea, 2 votes nay. Motion carried.
This concludes that issue for tonight, I presume?
Yes.
Next item is staff reports. Staff any reports?
Chairman, I have a staff report. My name is Mark Calusi. We actually have a good opportunity to summarize a lot of the things that were just discussed today. Actually, coming off the heels of the discussion that was today, it's a good opportunity to start thinking about how do we do a better job at planning for the future so that the concerns and the issues that we are addressing in the community, whether a balance between the citizens, whether or not the balance with the developers, we have an opportunity that we can really address all those things and develop a community vision so we can implement that going forward. And how we're going to do that is we're actually going to be updating our community plan. Currently, we actually do have a community plan. Community plan is what most communities call a comprehensive plan. A comprehensive, truly, by the definition of it, is comprehensive because it covers a number of different things, but mainly what the point of a comprehensive plan is to develop a roadmap for the future of the city. The current community plan for the city is the Branson Community Plan 2030. Some people may be aware of this. It has some unique things about it, but one thing I really, really like about the existing plan is it starts off by saying, Branson is a special place. I think that's something we really, truly need to embrace because so many people, our visitors, our residents, people that are moving to this community, the people that are developing in this community and investing in it, they really see it for that. It is a special place to be. It's a good place to live, work, invest, play, et cetera. So we need to consider what is it that makes Branson a special place. But before we really get into that and figure out a way that we can truly embrace that truth is truly defining what is a comprehensive plan. What is the point of even doing that? So just by defining it, a comprehensive plan is the principal guide in developing decisions related to growth, development, and the regulation of the future development within the city limits. The main point here is, as I already alluded to, it is developing a shared community vision for what the community is going to look like over the next 10 to 20 years. And it serves as a guide for community decision-making. However, what a community comprehensive plan is not is a legal document that dictates how a community is developed. However, it does serve as a guide on how that vision is realized over time. The comprehensive plan is not a regulation or a regulatory document. However, it is serving as the basis for those particular things, such as your zoning ordinance. And there are a variety of different sections within the Missouri revised statutes that gives the authority to communities in order to do comprehensive planning. There are several listed here. I'm not going to read them to you, but one thing I do want to highlight is, there's the authority given to the community in 89.310 for the formation of the commission and a city plan, as well as the contents which goes into a city plan in section 340. And then if you move on to 350, one thing I do want to highlight is the whole point of a particular comprehensive plan is to look at the existing and future needs of the community to promote the general welfare as well as the efficiency and the economy of process of development. that whole concept of promoting the general welfare of a community is a consistent theme throughout the entirety of this great nation. And we need to consider, what does that particularly mean for the city of Branson? It's not necessarily something that is cookie cutter. We truly are unique and special for a reason. So when we're looking at a comprehensive plan, we want to analyze a variety of different things that makes it what it is. Developing a community vision, looking at land use and housing, start looking at our different utilities and transportation, looking at the environment and the community, and starting to develop and realize what our community values are. We can look at our parks, open space, and recreational areas, as well as look at how the governance is that implements those things and holds those things true. And as we start to look at all those different things, we're going to actually accomplish a variety of different things, such as looking at how we can make progress in a variety of different areas, and take a look at the Community Plan 2030 to see what things have been done and haven't been done in that particular plan, to see what progress has been made, and then start developing analytical tools that determine, how are we doing? We're giving ourselves a self-report card of the things that are important to the community and how we've done with implementing those things. But then we need to start looking at how to develop that new community vision, a community vision that is going to be shared amongst our citizens, our visitors, all the people, our stakeholder groups, and ways that we can go about in getting that information. And then also then to give flesh to that body per se, and how you can start to figure out a way that you can implement that vision by developing goals and objectives, and how that vision can be realized over time. And we can do that by seeking different public input through a variety of different processes, such as the your planning and zoning commission meetings, and having conversations here. We can have conversations with key stakeholder groups and the different communities and groups that are really our partners in all the things that we do, so we can coordinate and collaborate with. We can do different interviews with a variety of different people. We can have public workshops, different public meetings, going to different groups and having just interesting conversations and figure out what is the pulse of the community. Then ultimately, there's the technical legal part of how you take this before your board, how you have public hearings, and also how we can have specific side groups. The Board of Aldermen already formed a comprehensive planning committee, or gave the authority to city staff in order to formulate that, which we're going to be moving forward in the very, very near future. But then the most important thing is once you've developed that plan, is then how do you develop a set of implementation tools in order to implement that particular plan, which would be in a culmination of all the different things that are in that plan, and find very time and constrained goals on how you can potentially get the goals and objectives of your plan implemented. And then also a way in which we can self-assess ourselves in periodic periods of time to make sure as we're implementing the plan that we can successfully update that plan in periodic pieces of time. The Community Plan 2030 was actually adopted in 2012, so it's long overdue that we potentially look at updating that plan, but we need to do a better job at not waiting the next 10 years. We need to do periodic updates to that particular plan so that ultimately we can start to define these implementation tools on how we can implement the vision through a variety of different ways, both short, mid, and long-term goals in a variety of different ways, such as operational changes, policies, regulations, financial investments, and studies, and those are all different ways in which we can actually implement the plan and develop some momentum so that we all can meld together and truly hold City of Branson as that truly special place. But, the particular plan is going to be broken in a variety of different phases. Right now, we're actually in the information gathering phase. Been already having a variety of different meetings with some stakeholder groups, meeting with city departments and staff, and starting looking at demographic data and a variety of different things, as well as the formation of the Comprehensive Planning Committee. As we move forward, we're going to continue to do studies and analyses, start to formulate what is the actual pulse of where we're at right now. And as we do that, we're going to continue to have different meetings and start to form those things until we can get to the document preparation phase where we're actually going to start to meld out what are those goals and objectives and start to look at how we can take the public comments from the variety of different mechanisms that I mentioned to be able to develop that particular plan so we can have draft sections so we can take to the public and say, hey, this is the plan, this is the vision which we want to have for the community. So how do we go about actually making that happen? So then ultimately we can get into the implementation and policy making phase. But it's a great time to be in Branson, and I'm really looking to embrace the way that we can develop this plan and continue to keep Branson as that truly special place. So I really just thought this was a good opportunity since we're gearing that up and we're going to be getting into action very, very soon In fact, we might even have our first comprehensive planning committee meeting as early as the new year. So you're going to hear a lot about that soon, or we'll be putting a lot of information either on the public webpage, public announcements. We're going to have a good webpage and mapping tools in order to track where we're at with it. So really excited about formulating the specifics, but have had a lot of good conversations so far and really looking forward to interacting with you and the public as we move this thing forward. So I thought it was a good opportunity to give you guys a staff report on where we're at with that. So thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. Any commissioners have any comments or questions of Mark while he's here? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other staff report? Being the case, the next item is going to be adjournment. Our next meeting is scheduled for when?
December 3rd. Well, oh, wait, no, because we have our other meeting, so that will be next Thursday, November 14th at 6 PM.
Okay, November 14th at 6 PM in the council chambers. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn the November 7th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman? Yes. Commissioner Moriali? The result of the vote is 6 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried at 7:02 PM.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.